Very good. I don't know
how are you?
Like, I'm good, but I don't know how to sorry, I'm editing my privacy so we can go live on my page too. But I don't know how to do that transition I did back, because with StreamYard you could put us back into stage, but it's still the intro still played.
Oh, gotcha.
Now I have to take the intro off, and then you know what I mean, like, and then put us on there, so it looks kind of weird. Anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm tired. I've been running around all day trying to get everything together I'm working on a new like promo piece, so I'm trying to get a video edited, and I'm like, I can work on it for a while. I'm frustrated, I gotta walk away. But I'm helps from stuff every so often. So
that's true. Very true. So before I want you to just, introduce yourself to everybody, and kind of let's talk a little bit about how you got into your stuff. We can say like what we're going to be talking about, but then kind of just go into, how you got to where you are right now.
Cool. Well, hello everybody. See some people over there. Danelle. My name is Shawn. So I'm the owner of Phantasmagoria Antiques and Oddities. I started this business last year. So it's my second year going, back in 2023. Before that, I McClure's cryptic creation. So that was more of like an art project. I did some of similar items and different things. There's a lot of more stuff that I made, though, a lot of my own photography, things like that I would sell. So this is kind of a new reiteration of that, where I focused more on authentic items from the past, stuff that has really dark stories. Usually it's pretty interesting. I actually have a few items over here that I'll start showing in a little bit later on and we can talk about.
Yay.
So and I'm excited for that. Some of the stuff is really different. A lot of it isn't even listed yet, so it'll be pretty cool to share. But yeah.
Well, okay, so let's start with this. Okay, what did you say? Say it again.
Phantasmagoria. It's a very complicated name and it's hard to spell, which probably was not the best idea, but I love that word so much. It was just so so.
So is it a made-up word, or does it mean something?
It does mean something. So back in the early 1800s, I want to say, the history is very like murky on this, but it essentially means a ghost gathering. So like Phantasmagoria. So what used to happen early 1800s, mid 1800s, you actually had Adam Chefs on too about this part of it, but used to do up through the Victorian era. They were kind of like magic lantern shows. So if you've ever seen a magic lantern, it's kind of like a big metal box and it would have a candle in it when they were originally created. They went into using them with light bulbs and electric light through the Victorian era at the end. But there would be little glass slides that they would put in of ghosts, and you would go to a kind of like a seance. So you would you'd go out on a date night or whatever in a theater, and they would have the ghost images displayed on the walls, and it looked like out of the walls and everything else. And it was a little like that. So I always thought it was just like the perfect word for all of this kind of stuff. It's just like a big amalgamation of creepy, weird things. So
and you sell that. You sell the things, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So what I always wanted to do is make a lot of this stuff accessible and kind of teach people. One of my goals when I was younger, I always wanted to be a history teacher. Today, I think being a teacher is not fun. So I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. But there's different ways to do it, right? So
Right.
I
Yeah.
kind of wanted, like, when I envisioned the future of like what I could do at the shop one day, it would just be bringing it to a physical location, almost like a museum where you can purchase anything in it. And that's kind of the goal. So I want to have access to all this kind of stuff from different areas, unless you know how to look for it,
Now,
and
do you
kind of tell
have
the
people?
backstories. I'm
Yeah. Do you have
sorry.
people like a certain? Is there a market for the stuff that you have?
Shockingly, yes. There is a big market online, mostly. I do go to different expo shows. I don't know if there's the World Oddities Expo. I'm going to be trying to get into the Oddities and Curiosities Expo for next year. So there's quite a few of those big ones. And then you saw my table at the back stuff. So
Yes.
I'll usually bring that around to different places. Those are usually a lot of the places where the collectors will go to look for it. But online, that presence is huge. So there's been a big uptick in people interested in oddities and just odd, dark decor items. So it's been really, really fun to try to find stuff that people like and match it up with them. So
You ever get anybody like? Do you have people that call you and say, "Hey, Shawn, can you find this for me?"
yes, yes. Recently, actually, I met the woman at a show up in Scranton. She does historical tours up there at the cemetery, which is really cool. But she has contacted me for any type of occult books. I actually sold her 3 of them that I had on the shelf back there. So that was really nice. So then I have her on my list to look for that kind of stuff. I have a few other people too. There's magic items. I have the spook show items. I have a couple of those that are actually listed, but people send me what they're looking for, and I keep them all in a spreadsheet that I have, so then I know who to contact when I find something. So
So, what would you say is? I mean, have you ever come across something that that you couldn't get? You just couldn't sell. You couldn't let go of.
there are some things that I don't know if it's whether price or just the vibe of it is creepy. Like I've had a couple of people that have really shied away from things. Um, I've pretty much been able to move almost anything that I've found. There's a couple of little items. Some of it's really hard to describe. I actually have some of the stuff here that I'll show. I can even show one now if you want. But like this one, so on a shelf, nobody knows what the heck it is. But it is a bottle of Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, which was a medication that people would give to their babies back. It was like, I think, mid 1800s to the 1930s. I want to say it was pulled off in 1930, but it was full of they had alcohol and opium in it. So when you would give this to your child, and morphine. So when you would give this to your baby to soothe its teeth and whatever, it probably wouldn't wake up most of the time and it would kill your child, which is just
Oh
awful.
my gosh.
But they sold it forever. I mean, there were, I believe that the count was like millions of bottles of this in circulation. So it was all over the place. But like an item like this, if you just set it on a shelf, nobody's going to know what the heck it is. It just looks like a bottle. It's like, what is this
Right.
overpriced thing here? So it's like stuff like that can be a little bit harder of a sell unless the person knows what they're looking for. But I've been surprised sometimes at these shows, people come up to me and they tell me things that I haven't researched. So it's kind of fun. Like you get to learn a lot every single day with this. It just makes it interesting.
So how do you so take me through like the process of obtaining an item. What do you do? Like you research, you make sure that
Yes,
it's
like
legit, obviously.
yes. Yep. I try to make sure that everything that I carry is authentic, and I offer a guarantee on that too. So if anybody ever buys something and they have questions of the authenticity, the last thing I want to do is sell them something that isn't real. There's a few items that I make. I always have them clearly labeled as a recreation or a reproduction, and I can get into that when I show you some of this stuff as to why I do that. But almost everything I carry is authentic. I always do research, oftentimes because I'm a big reader. So when I'm reading a book or something, especially an older history book, if I see something in there that's interesting and I want to look it up, I'll add it onto a list. So I have a running list in my phone of just like odd topics and unusual stuff that I can look out for. I'll do a little bit of research and then I'll kind of pinpoint items that I want to find. And I'll also see what I'm looking for. Like I said, people contact me every so often. So if I get one of those requests, I'll add that to my list and I'll do a little bit of research so I know a little bit more about it. Yeah, and then I'll just go out trying to find it. And there's any number of places where that can happen. I go to it all depends. I have a good list of different like antique mall vendors that I can go to. Sometimes I can find good stuff there. I have people contacting me to buy emails. They found me. I got an email
Right.
some years ago from some guy. I just out of the blue sends me an email and he's offering me a box full of magic posters inside of it. One price for the whole box, full of paperwork, and I still haven't even gone through it all. I want to say there's like 200 pieces in there. It's incredible, but
Wow.
that, from my understanding, is that person. It was in the possession of like their grandparent or whatever. It was full of old magicians' contracts and vaudeville stuff from like the 20s. They didn't know what to do with it. They must have just been looking around online after that person passed away, so then they needed somewhere to send it to. So like sometimes that stuff will come to me that way. But then
That's
you get the
cool.
normal run-of-the-mill stuff, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. It's all about knowing what to look for, which is really, really important.
Right.
So once you know what you're looking for, you can find this stuff. So
And and it has to have like, did you say like it comes with like a story, like something dark behind it,
I
or like
try
do
to
you?
find stuff. Yeah, I try to
Yeah.
find that kind of stuff. I think that's the most interesting, and I think that those are stories that aren't told very often. So to me, it's important. I think it's history that matters, and I think it gets like kind of looked because it's a little bit of a darker side. Fortunately, today there's interest in that sort of a thing, especially with like true
Mhm.
crime podcasts and everything else that's out there now, and the paranormal.
Yeah.
A lot of the paranormal is dark stuff, as you know, so it makes it more interesting. It's kind of that allure of the darkness, and it seems to work really well. So
Well, so what kind of item? What is your favorite thing to research? Do you have one thing that you? I mean, I know it sounds like it's an evolving door all the time because it's you're constantly you're always reading stuff. You're always places. So I'm
yes,
sure the list you know is plentiful. But is there
yes,
one thing that you like or something like I collect antiques, right? And I have a lot of those medicine bottles and stuff
I
like
love
that,
it.
and I have like a pair of glasses from like the 1800s, like you know what I mean. Like I collect stuff like that, medical antiques or chairs. I have a thing for chairs, but you can't fit too many chairs in a house. So,
Very
boy,
true.
but like,
True.
is there one thing that like and to be honest with you, one of my biggest collections is Playboy. So anything Playboy, but real Playboy,
And that is
like
huge.
the vintage
That is
antique
huge.
Playboy.
Yes, that is
Um,
huge.
so is there one thing that you find? Do you
For
collect? Do you keep anything?
It depends. Like, I will sometimes pick out items. That's probably like the hardest part of this type of work. I will find stuff that I absolutely love and I hate to sell, but it's like eventually you almost have to because you just run out of room or you need the cash quick, whatever's going on. So, my favorite thing to find though are the antique Ouija boards. They're my favorite. I think they have so much shelf appeal. They look so cool. They're some of my favorite items. They're very hard to find in person though. That's usually like an online purchase, and the market on them has gone up incredibly. They are very expensive now. Other
Wow.
than that, I think my biggest thing are medicine bottles. They're like the least sellers. Like I said, it's a hard sell because you got to try to explain to people what that item actually means. Anything medical related, for some reason, always fascinates me,
Me
especially stuff from
too.
insane asylums. I love that stuff.
Me too. I literally have like you. I should. We'll FaceTime. I'll show you. Like I will show you.
I
I have
love
a
that.
I have a medicine bottle that's like like handwritten from like a doctor, and
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
like on the bottle.
That's
Like
awesome.
I have. I literally. I'm so excited right now because I had no idea it was medical stuff. Because
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I'll have to. We'll FaceTime. I'll show you. You're gonna think I'm insane. I have a. I have. I have so much stuff over here. So anyway, I actually have even a medical box from world. I don't know what World War it is. I'll have to remember, but it's got like the Red Cross,
Oh, that's cool.
painted on it.
I love
Yeah,
that. I
and
love that.
like, and inside of it came. I can rip this out really quick. I'll show you. but inside of it came like, hold on, like the bandages.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my God. That is
Yeah,
really
like
awesome.
so that came in with a couple of stuff, but yeah, like oh, here, it's right here. I can show it to you. So
Yeah, try to
handwritten.
read the writing. It's like impossible. Oh my God, that's awesome. Does it say which pharmacy? New
Um,
York?
Board of Pharmacy, State of New Jersey,
New Jersey. Awesome. Awesome.
1889.
That's so cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm right. Sorry, I'm right there with
No,
you.
I love that stuff. Every so often, I will get prescriptions forever ago. I have a cocaine prescription, which I just think is so interesting.
That is cool.
One of the biggest sellers that I get in from time to time are like Prohibition era whiskey prescriptions. They are a huge deal. I think people like to like show them off in their bar or something at home, so they always look really cool. All the old timey
How much
handwriting.
does that sell for, Shawn?
It's like I usually get them. I usually pass them on for about $60, so they're not horribly expensive, and they're a nice display
No,
piece. So yeah.
I am interested.
Ooh, I'll let you know.
I am
And I always
so interested.
frame them. I do them up in like a nice display, so those usually go. But the next time I find one, I'll get
Oh,
for
awesome. Thank you. Yes, I'm interested. So let me know. Jossie made it funny because I literally my mom still has band-aids from 1985. Does that count?
They probably
I
work better
mean,
than the new ones anyway. So
right? Look, I have
that's awesome.
I don't know where that's from, but I literally have so much stuff in here. It's not even funny. It's crazy how much I have. Even like medical books. I have like medical books from.
That's huge. I actually just got a couple of those in. I love the ones with the I don't even know what the heck you would call it. They're like diagrams on the inside, but a lot of the old books would have fold out diagrams where it'll be like a body and like the human body, and then you can flip through the pages and like each layer of the skin gets removed.
Yes.
You can see like the
Yeah.
skeleton. It's really, really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted, and I went. Do you go to estate sales?
Yes. Yes.
Because estate sales are good.
They're
And
good.
yeah, when you can find that one, I landed. It was like I was like jackpot because the guy used to be a doctor,
Oh, that's the best. That or a
and
funeral home. Those two are like the,
he
the
had
golden.
he had a real skeleton hanging up, like of the human body, like it's like as a teaching thing, but it was a real skeleton.
Oh my God.
It was like I think they were $1,600.
That's bad. I've never dealt with
Well, mind
bones
you, this was
before, but
probably 15, 20 years ago.
wow, yeah.
So 15, 20 years ago. I'm showing my age, Shawn. But it was like $1,600. And I literally walked outside. I was trying to talk to my docs that I work for. I'm like, we got to get this thing. It's so cool. Bah, bah, bah. I come back in and they're like, a private buyer in New York just bought it. And I'm like,
Oh, oh, it's just the regret, you know? Oh God, that's horrible. That's horrible. That's
so yeah,
horrible.
that was the closest I ever got to anything cool like that.
Oh,
Do you come across stuff like that?
I haven't.
Skull?
I haven't. I know that I try to shy away from it a little bit because there's a lot of regulation with it, especially with selling online. You have to be careful
Oh,
of which state
really?
you're selling it to. Yes, and you have to know where it came from. I know you got to be very, very careful that you're not dealing with somebody who was murdered or God knows. So there's little tricks to it and everything. Obviously, if it came from a medical place, I think you're safe, But if some people are offering, even see it groups, they'll be offering have a skull. They can't even call it a human, like HOOMAN. Like you have to be very careful with typing that in online. So
Wow.
it's a risky area. So it's like I haven't gotten into that sort of a thing yet, but maybe.
I guess, I guess you would have to I feel like I saw a show about this or something, or maybe that's when it came up when I started to because I was like, what? There's a private bar. I'm like, there's a thing for this?
There's a big
And I know that there's a store in New York or something that sells stuff like that.
There was a
Um,
controversy recently too. I'm not sure of the specifics, but I know it was in the news. I want to say maybe remains that they shouldn't have been, and it became like a big scandal. So, and then I know that there was a woman, I think she was on in New Orleans or something. I shouldn't probably even talk about this. I don't know how long it was, but she was down. She was like a witch or something, and she was going to the cemetery after it would rain, and because the water table is so high down there, the remains were coming up, and she was actually taking people's bones and selling them online from the cemetery. I'm like, that is how you get cursed. Like you are asking for trouble.
yeah, no, and that's totally illegal, right? So
Yes.
like but what do you have to do in order to sell a skull or whatever? Like, do you have to like get it approved by the police or
I am
like how
not
do you?
I'm not even sure. I would imagine, like I said, I haven't dealt in that myself because of the strict regulation that I've seen around it. I would imagine that you have to be careful. What happens on the brew stays on the brew. I like that. You would have to know for sure where it came from. So I would imagine, like I said, if you got it from a medical school or an old doctor or something where they have the documentation for where they purchased it, I think you would be fine. I think it's more just the people that are selling a skull online. I don't even know where to begin with that. I don't even know.
I didn't even know there was like a market for it. I don't know where I talked about this before. I don't know if I had somebody on that did, no, or I watched a show about it. I have no idea, but there is a market for that, and I think
Yes,
it's like I love skulls. I love skulls.
they're
I love
so cool.
skeletons. I love Jack skeleton. You know what I mean? Like I love. I have all that stuff too. Like and but I don't know if I would be able to get a real human skull.
I know it would kind of freak me out. I think a little bit. I don't know. They're
I
cool
think it
though.
would.
I think they're really neat when people play them, especially if they're articulated in a really cool way. But I think it would freak me out. I don't know. I don't know how I'd
Uh-huh.
feel if I died and my skull ended up on somebody's mantle. Just kind of like,
I don't know. Well,
depends.
now you put it that way.
Some
I'm
people
like,
might like that though. You never
put a
know. Put
candle
urns on
up in there so
mantles.
that I'm still shining bright.
Exactly.
All right. So share some of your item.
Cool. Cool. I got
Well,
some
this
really
is
cool stuff. Oh, did we miss
Ajing.
any?
I'm gonna. So can I ask you this question really quick?
Sure.
Ajing, who's checking in from Indonesia, by the way.
Hello.
Yes. Um, she wants to know, do those items affect the energy in your home?
I I get that question a lot too. Everybody's always like, "Is it haunted? Does anything ever happen?" I've never had any particular experiences that I could necessarily point to and say that did something. There was one item though that I got. Well, two. There were two dolls that I've had. One was a ventriloquist doll that I sold pretty quickly. It went to
Yeah.
a woman in New Jersey. She bought it. She actually did things on her Instagram page. So she was actually showing that it had activity with it. She said that she felt it the moment she got it. Just because but I didn't have any necessary experiences with it. Has had stuff happen with it, which I thought was pretty cool. There was one doll which I named Ophelia. It was this little old composition baby doll that had a huge crack down the middle of its head. Lawrence will know about this too. I know he's over there on the side. Um, I brought it over to his house once for a little investigation. Nothing happened. When we tried it out that night, I did sell it to somebody in California. She does a haunted doll show, and she has had a lot of activity. But when I first opened that doll at home and I got it because I ordered it online, it came here. It was weird. It had a very weird vibe to it. I put it back in the box. I usually don't do that. I usually open stuff up, inspect it, and then put it on a shelf or in the computer. This one, I opened it, I was like, I don't like this out. I don't want it looking at me. I just don't want this out anywhere. So I put it back in the box. was like, it was really cool to look at, very, very creepy, but it just gave me weird vibes. She has it now, the person that bought it out in California, and she loves her. She feels like it's a very happy thing. So yeah, it was a straight nightmare. Yes. It was crazy, but yeah, like even just the overall energy, no, like I've never had anything that I felt from it. I do keep all this stuff in my home. My little workroom is in the back over there, but it is kind of separate. I don't keep it like in my area, so I don't look at it all the time. But yeah, you never know. Still waiting for something to be cursed. We'll see what happens.
All right, so let's see some of your stuff, and let's hear some stories about it.
Cool. So I'll start with this guy I don't know much about yet, but it's my newest ventriloquist dummy, and I love it. It is a little Charlie McCarthy. He's super, super creepy. It's an F&B company one, so these are like the official ones that they used to make. I want to say late 20s, early 20s, most likely. That's really, really creepy. I don't know much of a dark backstory with it. He's just fun to look at. So.
I don't think so.
What's that?
I don't think he's fun to look at, but hey,
I love these little things. They're so creepy. Kristen has a terrifying ventriloquist dummy. You have to ask her to show you the picture. That thing is straight up cursed. I don't know. She found it at an antique mall, and the thing is horrifying. She actually brought it to the Penhurst Paracon the first time we went there, and people offering her crazy amounts of money, but she was just kind of showing it. It was really, really cool. But yeah, I love these little guys. And the old ventriloquist dummies people love. I sell a lot of these. They're always fun. So I always think, like, I hear this from people that have done investigations on these types of dolls. They tend to get a lot of EVPs from. You're using your voice through it. I don't know, but it's interesting.
Shawn, will you be at New Jersey Para Unity?
I'm not going to be vending or anything. I was debating whether or not I would just go for the day. So I don't know, because I know that we had that potential investigation at Fort Mifflin. So it's been going back and forth yet. So I'm not sure, but I'm thinking about stopping by. Yes.
He was at the Bash. We had a table at the Bash. He'll be at the Bash next year.
Yes. And I'm trying, actually, the applications for some of the expos open up tomorrow on Halloween. So I'm going to be putting out some dates soon. If you look on my Instagram page, I'll have stuff when I'm going to be there in person. So I bring most of my good presentation, so you'll be able to see a lot of this stuff there too. So hi, Terry.
So do you ever not bring stuff because of how delicate it is, or like it's the money's worth or something like that? And then
it depends on the market. It depends on where I'm going to be. Some things sell better in different places. If you're like in a city area, you can usually bring the more expensive items. If you're not, people don't tend to buy them. They love to look at them. Everybody is always fun. But I try to be careful, because I always have a rule, like, people picture whatever they want, but of course you got to pick up whatever. Some of the stuff is super fragile, so I always watch, with how much I'll bring, and how much of the items will be glass items and whatever else. So it's just all about protecting everything, making sure it's safe. So
do you ship to people?
I do, yeah, and I use way too much wrap. I overship stuff so much, but I try to be very, very careful, because the last thing that I want to do is have this item and be in existence for 100 and I put it online and sell it and it breaks in the mail. That's just ridiculous. So there's always a way to do it, and I've never had that happen yet. Fingers crossed. So I've had over, I think, 200 sales online so far. So, and I've never broken anything, so that I'm aware of. So,
oh, well, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
So
do we have more?
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of stuff here. So, this. I'm going to take this out of the protective sleeve too. I bring these around a lot, and there's a good story with it. So this is a book about H.H. Holmes. I had originally gotten this online from somebody. The man contacted me. This is one of those stories. He contacted me online out of the blue and sent me an email. and he had a case of these, and I think there were about 50 of them in the original bulk amount of them. So my understanding from his email, I believe that he purchased a store. It was like an old storefront, and it had been a store in the Victorian era. It was in Chicago. And the box of all of these was down in the basement, and it hadn't been opened. So it had been sitting down there all these years. So I believe it's like a new old stock sort of a thing. It's on the back of an old, like kind of like a graphic novel or like a penny dreadful, like a comic book or whatever. All of them look very similar to this. I don't know if everybody can see it, but this book was written, I believe, 1896. So it was about the time that Holmes was executed in Philadelphia. And if anybody doesn't know, H.H. Holmes was this big serial killer. He supposedly had his murder castle in Chicago during the 1893 World's Fair Columbian Exposition. So I think this is just fascinating. It actually has a picture. Familiar. I hope you can see it. I know it's kind of dark.
Yeah.
It has a picture of him standing in front of a trunk with a tube going into it. One of the stories that Holmes told during, and I don't know, do you know much about his case or not? I don't want to like go into too much detail. So, so to start it all off, H.H. Holmes he's regarded as America's biggest serial killer. So it was like I said, 1893 at the World's Fair Exposition in Chicago. He had built a hotel, and the legend goes hotel to kill over 200 people that came to the World's Fair Exposition, and that he had torture chambers and acid pits in the basement. We know now that a lot of that story is not true. A lot of that was told.
Okay. I was going to say,
a lot of people get upset when you say that. So people love to have this dark, scary story as a true crime realm, but there is a really, really good historian named Adam Seltzer, who's probably the best Holmes historian in the country. He went really deep into all of the legends and myths about H.H. Holmes. I don't want this to be too boring, but a lot of the...
It's not boring at all.
A lot, because I can go on about this one forever. Ask Kristen. I talk about this all the time. But he had his murder castle, which everybody knows is his big hotel, like I said, where he had all the pits and the torture chambers and some gas lines built into the rooms where he could turn on the gas and kill just because he liked to kill people or something. He would hell. So we know this looking at the historical record. The entire idea of there being a big hotel was made up by the newspapers. H.H. Holmes called his building a hotel, but it was actually just an office building. And he used it in order to leverage and rip off creditors. He would, for the World's Fair, people at that time period were ready to put whatever money they could into Chicago because they were going to make a lot of money on the World's Fair. They knew that there were millions of people coming from all over the world to see the lights and the Ferris wheel and all that really cool stuff. So he took advantage of that, and he bought, hundreds of beds and whatever else you need in a hotel, anything, any sort of fixtures, light fixtures, everything else. Bought it all on credit. They all just gave him all this stuff. And he had secret passageways built into this office building that he built. And everybody thinks that was for him to like move bodies around and whatever. That's not what he did. He hid all of the furniture and all the secret passageways. And then when the creditors would come to repossess the furniture, because they're like, you didn't pay us, where's our stuff? He would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't buy any furniture, and that's not my name on that order form. And he would just rip everybody off. And then they would go running around the building. He's like, you can come in and look for it. You're not going to find it. And they would look all over. Well, there were mattresses stuffed behind the walls and everything. He had it hidden everywhere. And then he would sell it. But that's not to say he wasn't a serial killer. He did kill a lot of people, but I think 10 were recognized. But that's kind of where this whole story comes in. Sorry to get onto a little bit of a tangent, but
no, please.
Holmes would confess to killing so many people, and he was doing it to sell books. So while he was in prison in Philadelphia, he was at Mensing prison, not at Eastern State Penitentiary, because he was just in jail waiting, and he would confess to just killing people that were still alive. There were how many people that were noted through his confessions? Because he wrote, I think, 3 of them saying that, he killed this person and that person. And then that person that he supposedly killed would come forward and say, no, I'm still right here. I don't know what you're talking about. So
Right.
we know that he was lying through most of his writings, but he used to do it to sell books. He made a lot of money while he was sitting in prison. The man was very good at that. He was a con artist to his core. One of the stories that he came up with was this one. And he said that, so H.H. Holmes was convicted of only killing Benjamin Peitzel, who was his business partner. He was murdered in Philadelphia. Holmes, it was part of an insurance scam, which was one of his favorite ways to commit this crime. He would take out a huge life insurance policy on somebody. He would say, we're going to get a dead body from the graveyard. We're going to go dig somebody's corpse up. We're going to light it on fire, and we're going to say it was you. And then you're going to pretend that you're dead. So all of your debts go away. You're free. You get a new life. And we're going to split the insurance money, and you go your way, I'll go my way, and we live a happy life. He would always do that. But in this instance, it was just easier to kill Benjamin Peitzel. There's debate whether or not Peitzel accidentally killed himself. I don't believe that to be true. It seems like Holmes, I think he poisoned him with laudanum. And then he died on the floor of the shop, and then Holmes lit his body on fire. It was all a big mess. It was just gruesome and horrible. But through the time of him doing this, Benjamin Peitzel, the victim, his wife and children were all in on the scheme. They thought that they were going to get rich from this. They didn't know that Holmes actually killed their father. So her husband. So he was moving the family all across the country and into Canada to try to keep throwing them off what was really going on. And it seemed like he just started to panic. And you can read this through his own testimony and everything else that he had written down. But again, you can't really trust his word on anything because he lied a lot. So it's really hard to tell what the truth is of any of this that happened. We do know that he killed the Peitzel children. So he killed the two daughters and the little boy, which is just horrible and evil. But he said in his story that he had put the two little girls in a trunk, which is what this is depicting, and put a gas line to it and drilled a hole in it. And then he suffocated them inside of the trunk. The only problem with that story, from what I can tell, that this trunk was actually at a train station somewhere really far away with no holes in it. So it seems like he lied about this just because it made him more of a monster and he could sell more books. One of the famous quotes from H.H. Holmes is he said, I have the devil in me, or I was born with the devil in me, or whatever. He only said those things because he wanted to sound like a monster and make lots of money. So it's just like this thing can tell so much of the story. I just think it's so interesting. But
do we know how he killed the children?
So he likely poisoned them. That seemed to be his like main MO, was poisoning them. The two girls, it seems like he either strangled them or poisoned them. And then the little boy, I don't know if we know that. I know that he burned his body in a furnace. So this was at a house, I believe, in Canada. Burned his body in the furnace because the police found the boy's teeth and stuff in the furnace, which is just so horrible. But yeah, it's hard because like the forensic stuff back then was really difficult.
Yeah.
A lot of the Holmes victims, like I think 4 of them were never found. Nobody knows what actually happened to them. Some of them,
the wife of Peitzel, what happened to her? Because
she ended up testifying. Yeah, she ended up testifying at his trial. She survived and went on with her life. I believe that she had a baby. So at the time, because I think Peitzel had 4 children, if I remember correctly. So I think she had an infant with her. But yeah, she lost her whole family from this man. It's really, really awful. Truly awful. And I want to say, I think that there was a big holdup with all of the life insurance money because they were the ones who originally investigated Holmes. I don't know if she ever even got anything.
Really?
Yeah, terrible.
So he killed her entire family.
Yeah.
And she got and was left with nothing.
Yep.
Not even. Wow.
And he manipulated her the entire time. I think the most heartbreaking thing of that whole story to me is the children were writing letters to their mom the entire time, and he was pretending to mail them, but he had them all on him. So he had them with his luggage and everything else. He was never actually sending them. And the kids kept asking, why doesn't mom write? Or you can see it in the letters. The letters say, why don't you write me back? And it's so heartbreaking. It's just awful. He was so evil.
Wow. And people and people buy so his H.H. Holmes things are a huge.
Yes, big time. They are a huge collectible. I actually have another item here that I have. This is from my personal collection. It's one of my favorite items.
Here we go. Personal collection. Thank you.
I have the book that was published by the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office about the Holmes Peitzl case. This was the original book that was published at that time. They figured, I guess, if he was making money off of the story, why shouldn't they? So it actually tells the whole story. It even has parts of his confessions. It's very interesting. It has his pictures in it, and there's a lot of images. I want to say, let me see here.
I guess it's like people wanting things of like, which is weird to me, but like Jeffrey Dahmer and stuff like
Yes,
that. Like,
very
you know
much.
what I
Like
mean? Like,
the whole true crime serial killer thing. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
John Wayne Gacy's paintings, all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Very popular.
really. Have you ever come
Yeah.
across one of those?
I haven't. They're usually a little bit more modern. Like I know a lot of the serial killer stuff that we have is like from the 70s on. So I don't usually deal with that stuff that's that new. I've never come across them in my explorations of trying to purchase them. I've seen them in museums. Like I went to the Museum of Death in New Orleans. They had like Eileen Warnos's bra there and like all kinds of really weird, interesting stuff. But yeah, really fun.
If next time you go to Gettysburg, you got to go into the Gettysburg History Museum that American Pickers went to.
I've been there. So Lawrence actually took me there. They have like all that crazy like World War II stuff and just like
And
the
then,
stuff that
but
they
they
have
also,
is unbelievable.
yeah, like how about they have like that 3,000-year-old mummy
Yeah.
skull? They have George Washington's lock of hair and
Yeah, the hair. Yep. Yep.
hair, and oh my god, that thing, I could spend hours in that
It's
place.
so cool. There's so much to see. Like every time I go there, I think that there's something new that I didn't notice the last time. And I don't know where they find it. And to me, it's incredible that it's free. It's just a free museum to go by donation. And I just
Yeah,
think that's so damn cool.
yeah.
Really cool place. And I think many people miss it. So
Oh, yeah, I know. Isn't that sad? I mean, like, it's
yes,
such a great, like, I really think American Pickers put it on because
big
people,
time.
yeah, thank
Yep.
God they went there, right? Because,
Yeah.
but it's such a cool, I have a bayonet, and it's been stamped a lot. So it's hard for me. I tried to figure out where this thing's been. You know, it's very dirty, so I'm sure it's been used. I'll have to show it
Oh.
to you.
Was it like Civil War era? Like,
Well, it's got, you remember those, they weren't nails, but they almost look like it's a wooden handle, and
okay.
I'll have to show it to you. Um, it's a wooden handle and it has a crown carved in it
Oh,
in the
wow.
wood. Yeah, has a crown carved in the wood. Um, and then the blade is actually has like, looks like to me there's some Chinese markings in there. There's some like, I don't know. I honestly, it's like,
Wow.
yeah, it's been marked up. Um, and I've tried to, like the crown. I feel like it was like I could figure out where that was coming from, and it doesn't look like it's stamped. Like it looks like it was a carved crown
That's cool.
because the edges aren't clean. You know what I mean?
I'd love to see that. That's
Yeah,
really neat.
I'll have to show it to you.
Yeah,
Um,
cool.
I have not cleaned it. I never did anything to it because I'm too afraid. Like I don't know what's on it. Like there's stuff on it, but I don't know what. I'm not saying it's blood, but
It seems likely, but that's cool.
I
No, I'd
must.
love to see that. That'd be awesome.
Lauren said my favorite thing in there is the old fake hand used in the Victoria seances. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the clock from Hiroshima.
That is really amazing. That is such a cool thing. Or the Hitler X-rays and all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's
Like
crazy. It's crazy.
we Ava Braun's like nightgown and her like
Yeah.
all that. Like how did I'm like this guy has a fuck like a
It's
collection where
amazing. Even the John F. Kennedy room, like the stuff that's in there, I'm just like, how did you get this? Like his suit and then the leather from the car where he
oh,
was assassinated. I'm like, this is crazy.
I know. Marilyn Monroe's bra.
Yeah. It seems like bras are a big collection item. I know that's weird.
We had JFK's boxer underwear.
Yeah, they're in there.
You know? I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay.
It's
Um,
crazy.
it really is. And you know, it's cool to see that in Gettysburg because it's definitely different than any other museum there. Most of the museums there are you know, um, Civil War era
Civil
type
War,
stuff.
yes. Yep. Yep. And they just have
Um,
everything. I mean, that is just such a cool place. I hope more people learn about it and go because it is just so cool. And the fact that they just run on donations. So I try to give something when I go because it's just so awesome. But
well, that's another thing. Do you ever like work with museums?
not yet. I would love to, though. That's something I'm thinking about in the future, trying to branch out. So I think that's one of my next steps. I'm going to start contacting different people to see if I can get more people on that list. What are you looking for? Can I help you find it? Sort of a thing. So
So
uh,
do you consider yourself somewhat of a like the pickers?
in a way, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I don't go to like random places. I try not to do that. It's a little scary sometimes. You know how people are. But kind of like that
Yeah,
show
and
where they just show
especially
up in
now.
somebody's yard. It's like, oh, I don't know about
Yeah.
that. But yeah, in a way, you know, it depends. A lot of the stuff that I end up finding, though, the haggling isn't always fun. I don't know. It's not my favorite thing to do. That's what I hate about flea markets. I'm not a good negotiator. So
Me neither. Me neither.
it's a little tough, but you know.
Me either, because you don't want to insult. I'm always afraid I'm going to insult somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. It's so true. It's so true. So I usually let them start. I'm like, where are you on this? And then sometimes they like way undershoot what I was thinking. So I'm like, all right, cool. You know,
yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah,
deal, you know.
yeah.
It
So,
works. But,
all right, do we have something else?
oh god, yeah. So I have another book. I know they're not for everybody, but I think this is fascinating. I recently did. I do my YouTube channel. I don't know if you saw that, but I did a whole special episode on Norman Baker, and Norman Baker was a quack cancer cure doctor in the 1930s, and he is most famous for buying the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and turning it into his Baker Hospital. And he would rip off people who had cancer. He would pretend that he could cure them and take all their money essentially and then kill them. And
Oh my
his medication, so quote unquote, was, I think it was like watermelon seeds and water, and he would just inject this into them every day. The man was just so cruel. But he was like this showman charlatan. He started out as a vaudeville performer. He was a mentalist, so he knew how to read people's minds and get people to follow his power of suggestion. And he used that power to go on the radio. He would manipulate large masses of people, and he would tell them that the government was against them and that the big pharmaceutical companies were against them, and everyone's out to get you, but I'm the guy who can save you. Like that was kind of his whole shtick all the time on the radio.
Like a
The
cult,
government was after him for years.
kind of
Yes,
culty, kind of
yes,
culty.
very much, very familiar. so he would lead the masses, and a lot of poor people would follow him. It was a lot of just simpler people. It was during the Great Depression. People were desperate. Cancer cures or any sort of cancer treatment was really tough back then. They would usually
Yeah.
just cut stuff off or shoot you through full of radiation. Chemo, kind of similar to today, but a little rougher. Um, there wasn't much hope back then. So I think he must have justified that himself of saying, I am bringing people hope. I don't know. He made millions of dollars during the Depression, which is insane to think about when people couldn't even eat, and they were eating dog food and stuff. But
Yeah,
insane.
well, because they were like, I want to save my life.
Yes, they'll
You
do
know what
anything.
I mean? So that, people would probably spend any amount of money to do that, you know?
Yes.
It's so
But
sad,
it's horrible. It's horrible. It was sickening, researching that whole story because I
Yeah,
knew a little bit about it from like paranormal shows because I love the Crescent Hotel. It's one of my favorite places to go. Super haunted, of course, after all that happened there.
yeah.
um, but
What is it like
yeah,
there? Is that kinda like do you get a
it's
lot of sad stuff or
it was truly that. I went there thinking, oh, it'd be creepy. I went for my birthday last year, so I did like a big like trip through the Midwest, went down to Arkansas. And I stayed there in the Crescent for the night. I got this really cool room. The place is incredible. I believe it was rescued by an antique dealer. It was her and her husband some years ago. I think back in the 90s or something they did it. They restored it gorgeously. There's no place like it. I think it is truly incredible. You feel like you're stepping back into the past.
oh, wow.
They do really good ghost tours. They embrace that side of the history, which is pretty dark, and it's surprising because it's like a luxury resort. So it's obviously not for everybody to go there and hear the somebody might have died of cancer in your hotel room. It's pretty scary, but the whole time I was there, it's just very sad. It's so sad to think that those people went through what they did there, and just no hope. It just was
how did
really
he
sad.
get caught?
What's that?
How did he get caught?
He got caught. It was actually mail fraud, which is really interesting. It's like most people, like Al Capone and everything, it was taxes. Like this was mail fraud. He was using the U.S. Postal Service to send out his cancer cure pamphlets, and the postal workers in the area, and I guess the postmaster, they filed federal charges. It becomes a federal case at that point. They said that he was committing fraud through the postal service, because that's how he would get a lot of his customers or patients. He would send them postcards or pamphlets in the mail that he would pay for, and they would get sent to them, and it would be like, oh, come here, I can cure your cancer in as little as 2 weeks or whatever, and no patient turned away, no case too extreme, we can cure everybody of anything. And then they would risk everything and take all their money that they had left during the Depression and go down there. Just awful. But enough people were after him for a very long time. He ended up making a lot of enemies through his radio program, because he was attacking the American Medical Association, he was attacking the federal government. So a lot of people did not like him, and they were trying to find ways to get him. But back at that time, pretty much anybody could become a doctor. You could go be a chiropractor, and you were considered a medical doctor back then. You could go to a school for 2 years and get a certificate and be called a doctor. So it was a very different world than today. It was much less regulated in terms of medicine. And it was kind of the time of like snake oil salesmen and stuff. So there wasn't much that the government could do to stop him. He was able to get away with a lot for a long time just by using free speech, the First Amendment and everything else. He was able to get around a lot of regulatory things. The government kept trying so many different ways to shut him down. They ended up pulling his radio license, because they were like, you're not going to keep broadcasting on the air that you can cure cancer, and that the government is evil, and that medicine is evil, and all this stuff. So they pulled his radio license while he went to Mexico and opened a radio station and did like illegal, I think it was like amperage. I'm not sure. I'm not a big radio person. I don't know, but he increased the wattage of his signal so that it would go through most of the United States from Mexico. And he was like picking off local radio stations. So like you would turn on your radio to listen to music, and then here comes Norman Baker telling you about how he can cure your cancer. And it just like was, and the government couldn't do anything about it because it was in Mexico. So they had no reach there. So he was a good businessman, but he was evil. Didn't use it for good.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It's crazy.
That would listen, the older I get, the harder it is for me. Like I can't even watch like horror movies anymore. You know what I mean? Like I'll go to bed and be like, oh my God, like that could really happen. Like that really, like I would think about like doing the research for these stories and stuff like that. Like I would literally go, oh my God. Like I would think about it for weeks.
Yeah, it's shocking. And it's stuff that's like not talked about often, which is a shame. I mean, sometimes it's like people will say that the history maybe shouldn't be remembered, but I think it should. You should hope that type of a thing doesn't happen again.
Right.
And I think that that's an important point too with all of this stuff. I try to tell people like, it's not to celebrate any of these things. A lot of them are horrible, but it's just to make sure that like the victims of this guy aren't forgotten. He did a horrible thing.
It's for the victims, right?
Yeah, it's important, and I think that the hotel now still stands for that reason. It's an interesting place. You go there and have that reaction. It's like, oh, this is awful, that he did this to these people. And you kind of go there like, ooh, I'm gonna have a spooky time, and then it's like, oh, this is just depressing. It's like, this is horrible. It's like, I hope none of those people are trapped there. They had a horrible death to begin with, but yeah, and like this here. I can go back to that. Sorry, I go off on tangents all the time. I just love this stuff so much, and I could talk about it.
This is not tangent. This is awesome. I love this. This is great.
But this was actually a book that was shipped out, if you can see that there, from the Norman Baker Investment Company, because so he had so many different businesses that he would run. Actually, at the Crescent Hotel, if you go there, for everybody on the side too, in their lobby area, they have a little gift shop set up, and there's all of these little like trinkets. They have cool little like old room keys or old skeleton keys and stuff. They're really cool, that you can buy. But it's all on his old desk, which is, I think it's 6 or 8 sided. So he had a section of the desk that he would turn from, every single part of it was one of his businesses. So he was into a lot of things, a lot of things,
Wow.
but most of them scams.
Wow.
But that desk actually remained there at the Crescent, so they kept it. It was actually up in his office, which is pretty crazy. But
Wow.
this holds the book. It's called The Throttle. So it's the fact story of Norman Baker. And these were all, he had so many different biographies written about himself because he was just trying to make sure that people remembered him well, even though he was not a good guy. And it's a fascinating read. I read one similar to this because both books that he had written were pretty much the same. It's a lot of the same information. He just wrote it under a different title. And he put it in his signature lavender color. Apparently, the man was obsessed with the color purple. He actually repainted the Crescent Hotel this purple color. He had a purple car that he had made for himself. He
Wow.
always wore purple suits. I don't know what it was with that, but if you go to the Crescent today and you look at their chimneys, they're actually still painted that purple color, which is really
Oh,
cool.
wow.
So, yeah, so I don't know if they did that for the history or if they just left it as it was, but it's pretty neat. So
Interesting.
yeah.
That's interesting. All right.
Let's see what else we got here. This one you might think is pretty cool. I actually just picked this up the other day. It's a box, and inside it is a quack electrical machine. So people
Like,
used to
shock
take,
people?
yeah, yeah. So if
Stop
you read
it.
it, it's like it's a battery and a medical device, which is very strange. It's all in the instructions in here. But what people would do is charge this up. You can see the big dial there.
That is so cool.
It's so wild. And they would take these little handles and they would hold them and it would shock you. And the whole
Does it
idea was that
still
it could,
work?
no, no, thank God. Because God knows what it would do. I mean, I guess if you put a battery in it, it might. I just don't know what kind of a battery it would take. But yeah, they would shock themselves to cure migraines and all kinds of stuff. And they used to sell a lot of these. They're actually pretty common depending on where you go. But this is the first time I saw one like at a store. I was like, I need this, so I grabbed it. But
How, if you don't mind me like asking, like, what do those things go? I've never seen one before.
so they can go for a lot of money. My understanding, I still have to do research on this particular model to find out how much to price it at myself. But I know that I've seen them go online from anywhere from $200 to $400. So it
Oh,
depends.
wow.
I think it depends on the condition that they're in and everything else. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're a big deal.
Wow.
I love that kind of weird stuff.
I love that stuff too.
And with the medical stuff too, I'll have to show you them when we're off of here. I have an old patient file from an insane asylum in New York, which is very interesting. It's from the 20s, so it's old enough now, but sad story. I'll have to show you all that stuff then, so remind me later. But
Yeah. No, absolutely.
let's see what else I got here. I can show you some of the stuff that I make, and I can explain a little bit why if you want. But this is a recent thing that I just put out. So this is a bottle of Radithor, and I made this myself. And the reason for that is so these sometimes can be found out in the wild. You'll see them at different specialty shops, maybe usually online you'll find something like this. They're very dangerous to own, and it's because of like it says on here. I don't know if you can read the label. Again, I'm sorry if it's dark. I know it's dark in here. It is radioactive water.
Radioactive water. So
Yes.
you have radioactive water in there.
Yeah, well, I don't anymore, but people used to. So like when this one is one that I made. So this is so this one's totally safe to own. That's why I made a reproduction of it. I wanted to be able to tell this story without having to risk people's health.
Wow.
Because if you own one of these today, it's likely radioactive. Some of them do still exist out there. They're a little risky to have, and they're very small. The real ones were only about this big, so they're really tiny bottles. They don't have like a good display on them. This works much better. I think you can actually see it from far away. But the story with this guy, if you've ever heard of There's a story out of Pittsburgh. So I don't know. It's Eben Byers. I don't know if you've ever heard of that story before.
Mm.
So back in the 1930s, so back in 1906, I think is when it started for this guy, poor guy. He was a golfer. He was a really rich guy. His family was super rich. He had lots of money. He was on a train ride, and I believe it was a train ride, something like that. But he fell in his sleep and broke his arm. And he went to his chiropractor for help. He didn't know that his arm was broken. He just knew that it hurt, and it was really bothering him. And obviously, that mattered with golfing. So he went to his chiropractor, and he's like, "You're fine, whatever. Just take some of this stuff. It's a new medication that's on the market. It'll help you, and it'll, make everything better for you." He started taking this every day. It was very expensive at the time. I believe a bottle of this was $1. So that was a lot of money back then. I think a case sold for like $30. So only rich people could afford this type of medication.
Right.
It was just water with radium in it. And that had been a new thing. Marie Curie discovered that not too long before this happened. They were still testing radioactivity. They felt that it had some sort of medical properties. Obviously, they use radiation today to help with cancer, but back then they just felt that it was like an energy drink. So that's what he used it for. It was supposed to increase vitality and vigor and make you have more energy. And it was also like an early form of Viagra, apparently. So that's also why he would drink this. The problem was, through Eben Byers' lifetime, it's believed that he drank about 1,400 bottles of this stuff, which is crazy. It was only over the course of a few years. By the point that it happened, where the government was investigating this type of stuff and saying we can't be selling this anymore. So once the FDA got involved, I think it was an early form of the FDA got involved in researching this. They went to him to have him testify against the company that produced it, which was the Bailey Radium Laboratories. It was out of East Orange, New Jersey, actually. So,
way to go, New Jersey!
Right? So when they went to him to have him testify, they had discovered that Eben Byers' jaw fell off from all of the radiation in his skeletal system. So his jaw had like disintegrated and dislocated, so they had to cut it away. And if you Google it, there's a very graphic image online of what that looked like, and it's very terrible. There was an actual picture taken of him that they used at the trial against this company. The government then ended up putting out a cease and desist, and they weren't allowed to sell this anymore because they said there were just no health benefits to this. This man was just filling himself with radiation. And the interesting part is that his body is buried out in Allegheny Cemetery in Pittsburgh, and he's in a lead-lined coffin because his bones will be radioactive for a very long time.
Wow.
So
That is interesting.
Like, just to tell the story and to make sure that sort of a thing still stays around, but it's safe.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I know your jaw disintegrating is pretty bad, right? But that's all?
My understanding is he was very weak. Like, I think everything started to happen. He had holes in his skull. Like, his bones were just falling apart inside of him, which is crazy. He didn't live long after that. I think he made it a year or a few months after they went to take that picture of him. So it's, very dark.
What, was he addicted to? Like, did it have an addictive?
They believe that he was like, what do they call that? Like, psychologically addicted to it. Like, it wasn't a physical addiction like a nicotine. There wasn't anything addictive in it, but he thought that it was helping him. So he said that he felt energized and better, and it just made him feel better. And it was probably like a placebo thing. He just thought it was helping him. And
1,400 bottles.
1,400 bottles. That's insane. It's just insane.
Crazy.
There was so much radiation in him. I think they said it was like 10 times the amount that would kill a person was like in his system. It was just unbelievable. And like I said, his remains are still radioactive. I think he died in 1932. So that, you're talking almost 100 years, and it's going to go a long time past that. I believe that they dug up his remains sometime in the 60s or something, and they researched, to check to see if he was still radioactive, and he was, which is just unbelievable.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
What a horrible thing. And it's a shame too, because like when you see pictures of him, he was like really handsome. He was this rich playboy guy, like he had his whole life, and it just totally screwed it up for a broken arm. Just unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So crazy.
Yeah,
Now,
if everybody Googles Eben Byers, it's EB as in boy, EBEN Byers. If you Google it, it'll probably be the first picture that comes up on Google Images, and you can see what it did to him, and it's really graphic. It's terrible. It's
don't
like nightmare fuel.
don't leave and Google before we're done.
Yes, please.
Wait till the show's done to Google it.
And then I have one more item. This is another thing that I make only because it doesn't exist, so it just makes it fun. This is one of the first things that I got into doing. They are what I call Victorian ectoplasm samples. And I get asked quite often online if these are real. They are not. But people ask that often. This is just an art piece that I created, but obviously because it would be impossible to get ectoplasm from spirits, it's just to talk about the history of it. So and this type of thing with the ectoplasm, everything, it really wasn't the Victorian era, it was more the Edwardian, but I thought Victorian sounded better, so that's what I went with for these. I created these using the same materials that spiritual mediums used to use back in the early 1900s in that like spirit photography. So if you've ever seen those pictures of like mediums in the dark, they're usually like this or whatever, and there's like a white wispy thing coming out of their mouths and everything. And they used to say that this was proof of spiritual manifestation during a seance. And it was always a fraud. Sorry to burst people's bubble on that. A lot of people want to believe it. I know it's so cool looking, but it was a photo trick. It was done with like a long exposure in the dark. The mediums would actually just hold cheesecloth. That's all that's in here. So they would use cheesecloth and they would hold it up to the side, or it'd be on a string. And then they would take the photograph in the dark and you would just see it coming out of their mouth or like some other part of their body. And it just made for a really cool, creepy photograph. So
but for them to even think about that thing.
It's weird. And like, if you do some research online, there were weird things that they were doing with it, like naughty stuff and whatever else. Like, I don't know why. Like, they were trying to make it sexy, I guess. I don't know. It's really, really strange.
What's cheese? What'd you call it?
Cheesecloth. So it's like what you would do if you're producing cheese or anything. You'd wrap it up, and you'd tie it, like, I guess, like mostly like the Italian cheeses and stuff. They all come in that wrap. That's what this is. So it's just that type of material. And then I dye it and I treat it so that it stays, firm in the position that it's in and everything else. And then I paint the bottles. So I make them look just old and kind of creepy. It's just kind of fun. I've had people actually like request custom labels and stuff, which was really cool. It's a lot of fun. Like, I've had people use them in shows. So they're like props that they've had. I know somebody was doing a play, I think in Virginia. And he contacted me and I could like do a custom label for him and stuff. It was really fun. So it's just something different, but
that is cool. That is different.
Yeah. But yeah, again, like that type of stuff I will recreate just because it's almost impossible to find or it's dangerous to own. So like when that sort of thing happens,
I love that you use what they used.
Yeah, same materials. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I love. Like, it's a recreation, but you're using the things that they used.
Yes. Yep.
Shawn, you continue to amaze me.
Oh, thank you.
You're awesome.
Thank you so much.
Now I'm gonna attempt to type. All right, so give me PH. Go ahead.
Oh, for the thing. Okay, so it's Phantasmagoria.
So
PHANTASMAGORIA. Right. And for my website, you can either go to shopphantasmagoria.com or enterphantasmagoria.com. Both work. I own both of the domains for that. So,
all right. So I'm going to put that up there. Shop Phantasmagoria. I'll never be able to say it. .com.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Wait, let me copy this so I don't have to have you type it or tell me again. All right. So there's that. And while I'm doing that, and what was the other one?
Or enterphantasmagoria.com. Both domains work. They both go to the same place, though. So that link is fine.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll put them both in there, though, just so that people have them.
Yeah, go check it out. I got so much stuff on there. I have a lot of really cool sheet music examples, which are really neat. I love the old artwork that they used to put on them in the early 1900s. So it's a lot of fun. So, and I'm actually running a huge sale until tomorrow. So
Oh, awesome.
it's doing like a big Halloween sale. So I think there's like 25% off of everything. So everything's on a discount. So
Oh, snap. Well, listen, when you get that whiskey though prescription,
I will let you know.
yeah, I'm interested in that.
Perfect.
I'm a whiskey girl. And I,
Me
I
too. I love
yeah. So
it.
I'm interested, and that's a prescription,
Yep.
obviously the medical side of it too. So that's like something I'm definitely interested in.
Yeah, it's so good. I love when it's clear too. So I'll try to find you a clear one. You know how their handwriting was just so
Yeah,
hard to read back then, especially doctors. But I can find them usually where you can clearly read that it's whiskey, so it'll be good.
awesome. Well, Shawn, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so
Thank
much for sharing
you.
your stories. Thank you for sharing your stuff. I hope everybody goes check. Please share the show out, not for me, for my guest, and
Aw,
for what he does. I think this is totally interesting. You know, something totally not normal. So I really
paranormal.
for sure. And I love you. I'm so blessed to call you a friend. You're
I
amazing.
am
You are,
so happy to know you and everything else.
yeah.
You're just an amazing person, and you've been so inspiring. So I'm
Oh,
really happy that I know you.
thank you. Thank you. And everybody, please go check out Shawn's page. Like and share and follow him. And, like I said, share the show out, not for me, for him. And I appreciate everybody in the comments. I don't know why I can't see. I see Lawrence commented, but I can't see. Why can't I see it?
Said good show. Well, thank you, Lawrence.
There it is. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you. I love you too. Um, all right. Well, with that, we're going to say goodnight. I want to thank everybody for coming on, and Shawn, especially you. Thanks for sharing and coming on.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. I love it. Anytime, too. If you ever want me to bring more creepy, fun things, I'll be happy to do that. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, look who's here.
oh, Stevie.
I'm so glad I guess doing this. Definitely going back and rewatch and we'll share it everywhere. Oh, we love you too.
Thank
Love
you.
you. All right. Well, with that was a good out. Truth or Demons podcast.
Perfect.
Thank you for coming on. Love that channel. Please go
Oh,
subscribe to
yes.
her as well. She's awesome. But thank you guys. And until next week, have sweet dreams.
And happy Halloween.
And happy Halloween. Yes.
I can't believe it's here already. Crazy.
I know. Happy Halloween.
Bye.